Yes.
How did your family react?
Egyptian or Iraqi?
Tunisian.
Tunisian.
How did your family react to all the people that you knew before?
My family, the big upset for them had been when I left the priesthood. That had devastated them. That had really upset them. So I couldn't do anything worse than that. So when it came time for me to tell them I was Muslim, and I didn't tell them straight away, I was too kind of frightened to tell. I kept it quiet for quite a time. And then eventually I just let it slip in the conversation. And it was okay. It was okay. Because to be perfectly honest, in this country, it's not like in the Arab world where religion is really important and people fight over it. Here, you could worship a monkey and no one would care, you know. So my family, even though they go to church, my mum goes to church every day and she gives my books to her friends now. No, they're very accepting. When I went into the staff room, I accepted Islam on a Saturday. I went into the staff room on a Sunday morning and the staff all clapped. I went to the head, who was from Reading, a Quaker, and he said to me, I said, you'll never guess, but I became Muslim. He said, at last. We've all been waiting for when it would happen. So it was well accepted. As for the people I used to live with, you know, as their priest, when I left the priesthood, I slipped very quietly away, you know, and I went to live in a different place. So when I became Muslim, I wasn't living with those people anymore. And I tend not out, maybe I'm a bit of a coward, but I tend not, I think out of sensitivity towards them, not to rub it onto their noses. You know, if an imam left Islam and became a Catholic priest, we wouldn't like it. We wouldn't. So I tend not to rub it in their face. But the other day at Royal Holloway, University of London, the Catholic chaplain was there. And at the end of the talk, the same talk, he came to me and said, if I organised a conference of Catholic priests, would you come and talk to them about Islam? And I thought that's very nice. My approach to other faiths is usually to the Church of England or to the Orthodox Church or the Methodist Church. And I've met bishops all over the world, you know. But Catholics, I tend, out of respect for them, but I'm happy to talk to them, no problem, you know. And I respect their right to believe whatever they want. Sister.
You said that you came to the North after you were thinking about Islam. I want to ask what made you actually think about it seriously, that it might be true?
Well, it took a year. There isn't a St. Paul on the road to Damascus event. You know, I can't say this is what did. The little boy is what started it off. But even then, all my life I've been a spiritual person. I've always believed in God and prayed all my life since I was a little kid. So it was just a journey. Eventually I started, you know, I had no plan to change my religion, but when I left the priesthood, after some months I stopped going to church. I didn't stop believing or losing any faith in God, but I stopped going to church, and I just was hanging around with Muslims more, and listening to them and talking with them, and then eventually accompanying them and watching what they did. So it was a gradual process of, you know, I like to say that I didn't look for Islam, but Islam looked for me. Islam came looking, I didn't go looking for a new religion, but Islam came and found me in the end, and, you know, wouldn't let me resist in the end. So there wasn't one specific thing, but people and events. But the thing is, and this is happening to all of us every day, but usually we don't listen and we don't see. We don't listen to what Allah is telling us each day. I mean, today, what did Allah tell you? I bet He was saying a lot to you today, but you didn't really listen to what He was saying. You know, if you spent 5 minutes tonight writing in your notepad, what did Allah speak to me today? What did He want me to hear? If you listen, if you get into the habit of trying to listen to what did He say, or when you get up in the morning, what did He say to you during the night? You know, He's talking to us all the time. But because we're so busy with busy things, we don't hear what He's saying. You know, and He's offering us the answer to any problem we have. Islam gives us everything we need. You know, it's a beautiful thought. Islam is the natural religion of mankind, which has existed since the beginning of time. And it speaks to the hearts of all people. Islam, I'll sum up Islam in 2 phrases. Islam is this: there is a God, And that God speaks to his creation. That's Islam. That's the essence of Islam. There is a God, one God, who speaks to his creation. Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah wa ashhadu anna Muhammadan Rasulullah. And that message speaks to all people. It speaks to the people in your lecture theatres. All of them. You know, if there's a plane load of holidaymakers travelling from the Costa del Sol for drink and whatever else, and they're coming back home and the engine cuts out in the plane and it starts to plummet to the ground, everyone on the plane starts saying, save us, save God, save us. You know, whether they're religious, it's natural for them to do that. Think of that earthquake in Haiti when 100,000 or more were killed, and a man is scrabbling in the rubble looking for his son. He never prayed in his life. As he's digging, he's crying out, God, save my boy. Take my eyes, but save my boy. It's natural, and Islam speaks to that in the heart of all people. And Islam teaches not only is there a God, but that God isn't just some kind of vague entity. He not only made the heavens and the earth and everything in between, but he knows every leaf that falls from every tree. He speaks to each one and cares for each one and wills the best for each one and gives us all we need to lead a good life. So, you know, if sometimes, going back to the boy who doesn't know why he can't drink, you know, you know, if only we knew it, all of the everything in Islam has a reason. Islam is perfect. Perfect. People who don't like Islam, they throw things at Islam. For example, they talk about Prophet Muhammad marrying a young girl, Aisha, and they say, oh, how sordid. This was really, oh, how horrible. You know, I could stand on that desk and give a talk about Muhammad and Aisha, and I could talk about it as the Romeo and Juliet story of this world. It's a beautiful story. But because we don't know the story, because we're not educated enough, you know, we make Islam seem sordid and cheap because we can't come up with the right answer. You know, they ask us, why can a man marry 4 wives and a woman can't marry 4 husbands? And because we don't know the answer, we make it seem, you know, somehow Islam has it in for women. That's not that. I could stand there again and give a beautiful talk and be everything in Islam we can be proud of. Even the boy who can't drink. You know, Allah knows what's best for each one of us. Allah, He made everything. He knows what's best for me better than I know. So if He says you don't do that, surely He's right. And we've got to come around to understanding. And He gives us all the things. You know, in life, I said at the start, there are problems in life we think we can never overcome. I made it clear on this focus I don't want to talk about politics in Egypt. I'm a politician. But they asked me on the BBC the other day, the man said, oh, tell us about Egypt. This was live on air, so I had to say something. So I said, well, what it teaches me is this, that, you know, just as the Berlin Wall fell down, and the Soviet Empire collapsed, and apartheid came to an end in South Africa, I could never imagine 3 weeks ago that the President of Egypt would be driven from office. And it teaches us that in this life, all things, there is nothing that's not impossible. You know, this situation in the so-called Israel now, in the Middle Ages, the Crusaders were there for 200 years. They had kings sitting on thrones with crowns on their head. And when their time was up, they packed up their bags and went. These people have been there for 60 years. They'll go, as sure can be, they'll go. It isn't their land. They won't end up there. But so instead of, oh, what are we going to do? We should, as Muslims, we don't say, America al-Akbar. We don't say Israel al-Akbar or al-Filus al-Akbar. We say Allahu Akbar. And that applies to our own lives as much as it applies to anything else in this world. You know, if we have a problem in life, Allahu Akbar. Allah is in charge of all things. Nothing should get us down. As Muslims, we should be the most cheerful men and women, smiling with a spring in our step, because nothing can overcome us, nothing can get us down, because we know that God's plan will be worked out, either now or at some time. My answers are very long now. Maybe what?
I just want to say thank for the Muslim society, inshallah. I've been here myself about 24 years in the university, and this year and last year, Saad, alhamdulillah, he's not here, he's a doctor now. But he's been very active for the last 2 or 3 years. And just an example, today, I was delighted to come and meet you today at the station. He called me about 10 times, I'm not joking, you know, making sure that you know. So, you know, a lot of things we are taking for granted, you know, for the Muslim students to take an active part in the Muslim society, to organize events. And also, I would like to thank the brother, because this is the second time we have you here. You said there was no doubt that you are walking light. And I can see, I was telling myself that you are traveling, you are good at all now, because inshallah. But I want to ask you a question. You said you have the beauty of two religions. You have Islam and you have Christianity, but you said it's a wrong message. Brief, what does it mean? Christianity is a wrong message.
Well, okay.
So, myself, I was the other day, about 3 weeks ago, and I was walking outside university. Somebody Christian gave me a leaflet, and subhanAllah, I was reading that leaflet, and it's very much related to Islam, and I'm very comfortable with it, but so if you can tell us a little bit difference.
Well, very simple. The main message is different. A year or two ago in Edinburgh, I did a thing with the Bishop of Edinburgh. It was called Muslims, Christians and the Real Jesus. And the Bishop Brian Smith, he gave his talk about Jesus from a Christian point of view. And I gave my 2 pence about Jesus, peace be upon him, from a Muslim point of view. And the audience, it was in Edinburgh Central Mosque. And the audience was half Christian, half Muslim. And after half a minute, it was quite apparent that we disagreed totally. The bishop saying that Jesus was the Son of God, who died on the cross and rose from the dead to save sinners. And I believe perfectly clearly, the Quran tells me of a certainty they crucified him not. He wasn't God's son. He didn't die on the cross. He didn't come to save anyone. What would he save them from? No original sin to save them from. So we disagree on that. So I would say that is the difference. These are good people, very good people, but good. Islam is very reasonable, very sensible. And what would God need a son for? Why would he need a son? Regardless of it being, sounding bad in our minds, or what would he need a son? Why would he need a son to die on the cross? Why? If God is all powerful, what would he need that? We could do all things himself. What would he need such a thing for? And in the Christian and the Muslim view of creation, in the Christian one, Adam and Eve sin and they're expelled from the garden, and that's the end of the story. And everyone for the rest of eternity carries with them, they're born into the world sinners with original sin. Well, in the Muslim story, they're expelled, but they come back and they're forgiven by God. So there's no original sin. So what would a Saviour save them from? There's no original sin. And by the way, the woman isn't left to carry the sins of mankind. It was she that gave me the apple. We don't have that in Islam. Yes, brother.
I want to say this because of where you started to talk. You started from a point that really touches my heart. And when you were mentioning what converts you to Islam, interestingly, the boy that converted, he did not know that he converted anybody. Till now, he do not even know. Yes. Just like you said, on the Yawma Kiyama, he knows. So in our present society here, already, what you have just used as a catalyst to Islam is not very apparent. So I just want you to summarize it as an advice for those of our Muslims here. Because I found, fortunately or unfortunately, you hardly see a Muslim who will say Salaam Alaikum to you in this environment. If you are very unfortunate to come here for holiday, I doubt if you are going to get converted from Islam. If Allah wills, you are not going to Salaam to you. And there is an hadith of Rasulullah that says that you want to be successful in the hereafter. It's an hadith that is very sahih. Spread the greetings. If that's just the only thing you would do, you wouldn't know how much you would touch the heart of another person. So my question is this. Is the sunnah? I want to know your attitude towards some sunnah. I know you are doing some certain sunnah very well. Because when you said that you don't collect anything for any lectures you do, I was seriously...
Tell me again.
You said you didn't collect any money, any charges for talking. I'm impressed. Because definitely, what I would like to know, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will reward you for whatever you are doing. And Allah is only showing it. So the advice is that even here we are sitting down, I've never seen some of these people. 80% of these people who are sitting here, I've never seen them before. So when I see them on the street, I try to say Salam Alaikum so that we can identify ourselves. One fact is that it boosts the morale of those who are hidden Muslims. You know that yes, we have other Muslims. Secondly, it boosts this spirit of Islam, because the first Hassan said we should be in brotherhood and sisterhood, and that is the strength of our Islam. If that is not there, they will be in pieces. I said on the day of Juma, even when we were planning for this program, and Sister Sohalia was saying that Brother Shikomeli, this was Shikomeli, I only see Brother Hassan and 2 4 other brothers. But here today, we're all here. If we can give a very good hands to it, if we also can come, then Islam will be better than this. Then we will not be restricted at what you said. If you are in your house, you can serve monkey. Not like that. Where I was living in Reading, I used to pray alone for almost 3 months. Pray alone, pray alone. But then I saw a brother, I said, let us pray together. We came together. He's from Ghana, I'm from Nigeria. Later I saw another brother again. Let's pray together. Whether we like it or not, it is spreading. So my question is this. We need an advice from you. How we can build our Huma here in Reading? If you remove Rasad, I don't know what will happen. If you just remove Rasad from the executive, I don't know what will happen. So that's my question.
The important thing, first of all, you talk about calling people to Islam. We don't call anyone to Islam. Allah Almighty calls people to Islam. You know, we forget this sometimes. And we think that we are going to, we talk about converting. We don't convert anyone. Islam is not a missionary religion that goes out and looks for converts. We're asked by wise words and beautiful preaching to tell people about Islam. And inshallah, our wise words and beautiful preaching will attract them, and Allah will use out to bring them. But we don't convert anyone. Let me read you this. This is from the first book I wrote. In the 10th year after the Hijrah, Muhammad performed Hajj, the once in a lifetime pilgrimage to Mecca enjoined on all Muslims capable of making it. This was to be the 5th pillar of Islam. On the last day of the pilgrimage, he delivered his final sermon to those present, many of whom wept as they listened. Remember that you will indeed meet your Lord, he told them. So they must live in peace and charity together without greed or usury. I leave behind me 2 things, he said, the Quran and my example. If you follow them, you will not go astray. O people, listen to my words. Know that every Muslim is a brother to every Muslim, and that all Muslims constitute one brotherhood. He called aloud, be my witness, O Allah, that I have conveyed your message to my people. And there before them he revealed the last verse of the Quran. This day have I perfected your religion for you, completed my favor on you, and chosen for you Islam as your religion. So what do we do? What do we do? First of all, you know, I'm a great believer that Palestine, if as Muslims we were to take Palestine seriously, our Muslim nation would rise up once more. For 60 years we've been asleep. 60 years ago we were so asleep that we allowed people to walk in and to take the land of Islam from us. And for 60 years we've allowed things to go on that should never have happened because we've been asleep. And we look at the Muslim world and it's divided and lacking in leadership. And you know, the answer comes from our Prophet. Because he tells us, he didn't wake up one morning and say, oh, I know a nice idea. Let's call each other brothers and sisters. That sounds nice. No. He told us that we're brothers and sisters because that's what we are. We are brothers and sisters. Now, most of us don't believe that. But we are brothers and sisters. You're my brothers and sisters more than people who are brothers and sisters by blood. That's how much we are brothers and sisters. You know, in Palestine today, if someone sent you a text message saying your brother has just been knocked down in a car accident, you'd get up and rush to his side, wouldn't you? If someone telephoned you on the mobile and said your mum is in hospital, you'd rush out. Well, I'm telling you today, I'm texting you today and saying your little brother in Gaza is trying to get to school and he's being stopped by occupation soldiers and he wants Baba and he's afraid and he's crying. He's your brother. And your sister, she's trying to get to university and these soldiers, they've taken the hijab off her head and they're laughing at her. She's your sister. It's when we start to think of one another as brothers and sisters that our Muslim nation will once more rise up in strength. The problem is, you know, we've been led by other people to believe that we can't do anything about it. And you hear Muslims saying, oh, we need Salah ad-Din to come and save us. Brothers and sisters, no Salah ad-Din is going to come. Why? Because you are Salah ad-Din. And I am Salah ad-Din. And it's only when we're asleep in idleness we can never do it. When we wake up and realize what Allah Almighty calls us to be, that's when we will live as a nation. So what do? We start taking seriously the fact that we're brothers and sisters. As the brother says, we greet one another. I mean, walking past the mosque earlier on, I don't know if they're here now, I don't think they are, but there were two brothers, and I said to them, Assalamu alaikum, and they were shocked. They were shocked. It's like a dear friend of mine, I don't know if you've heard of Imam Ziaullah Khan, he's a wonderful, wonderful speaker, and he told me one day, he was in Afghanistan, he came out of the mosque, and he said to, they didn't know him, and he came down, and he said to one of the brothers, Assalamu alaikum, and the brother replied, do I know you? You know, this is the state we've come to. We should cherish one another as brothers and sisters. That's how our nation will rise, and that's how the world will see Islam. They will see us and say, wow, I wish we were like that. I want to be like that. You know, no one wants to join a miserable group, or a group that's disunited and divided. They want to join somebody that's thriving and happy, you know, people who walk tall. So I'd say that's one of the many ways. We'll have a quick question and then we've got to finish, I think, because I've got to be whisked off eventually to the station. But if you buy, just one second, if you buy the books, I'll sign them to your Auntie Zainab or your Uncle Ahmed or whoever you want. Okay, so this is the last question. Tell me again.
When you were learning about Islam, what was the most interesting?
What she said, what's the most interesting thing I have learned about Islam when I was learning about Islam? I'd say for me, it's simplicity. It's simplicity, absolute simplicity. You know, as grown-ups, we make Islam seem so complicated. You know, we tell people about all kinds of things. They don't know about Islam. And we talk about all kinds of things they don't need to know about. They've got all their lives to learn about Sharia law. But if they don't believe in God, talk to them about God. But Islam talks about the simplest things, you know. Unfortunately, we complicate it all. There's a lifetime to learn about all the other things. The most beautiful thing for me is, you know, in Islam we don't need priests or popes or ministers to intercede for us. But when my forehead touches the ground in prayer, you know, I can fool you easily. Easily. We can even fool ourselves sometimes. But Allah is not to be fooled. And when our foreheads touch the ground in prayer, all we can say in honesty is, you made everything, and to be perfectly honest, without you, I am nothing. But with you, wow, it's fantastic. I mean, living in Egypt, or any country really, other than a country that's obsessed by materialism, you'll meet poor kids in the street, and they're walking straight, really straight. You know, they're not bowed down by the cares of the world. Islam gives strength. So I'd say Islam is, what I've learned is Islam is very simple. And Islam, if we submit, you see, submitting is not a very politically correct idea. We don't like to submit, we like to be in charge. We don't like to submit to anyone. Islam teaches us if we submit to Allah Almighty, then in the very act of submitting, we are raised up to become really important. And Islam comes from an Arabic root word that means two things, submission and peace. And when we submit, we receive peace in our lives. But why do you think, you know, we worry and we can't get to sleep, or we wonder about this, and because we don't really submit. So we need to completely submit and say, yes, take me. What the consequence of that will be is a difficult one, you know. But we say, take me and do with me as you will, and then we're freed beyond measure. Okay, I think that's it. Thank you very, very much for listening. I think there's something to eat or drink. There's the books as well. If you want to ask questions, don't ask, if you want to talk to me, don't ask me kind of meaning of life questions now. If you want to ask those kind of questions, email me at admin@idristawfiq.com. Okay, shukran.